Good morning. I'm in Mousehole Harbour. It's about 7:30 in the morning, very dazzly and bright. Been a while since I've done any plein air, so I'm quite excited to start. Gorgeous subject. Love these tall boats, these old boats. So let's begin.
I started with burnt sienna and yellow ochre, mapping in the boats so they fitted with a gap in the harbour, then mixing a dark blue with burnt sienna and ultramarine, just getting the shapes of the hulls. I then put the reflection in, which was a lighter colour in tone and greener, just using the flat of a brush to sweep down into the water. Working outwards from the dark blue hull is the white in shadow. With a large area of water around the boats, I wanted to make sure it was the right tonal value and colour. There is light coming through the gap, so I also wanted to emphasise that. I used really sweepy brush, wanted to make a lot of lively marks and interesting shapes to make it look like the water was moving. I varied the colours between the greens and blues, but keeping the tonal values the same. Using raw umber, cadmium yellow and ultramarine, I put the wall in, the harbour wall, and made sure the paint was quite thin and kind of brushed it into the board. And then the sea colour behind, making sure that was also lighter than the harbour wall. Holding the brush lightly, I mimicked the shape of the cloud, kind of turning my brush this way and that to kind of get a feeling of lightness and scudding. I put a very light cerulean blue also in between the cloud shapes. I then worked back into the harbour wall, making the top area darker because it was against the light sky, leaving a little slither of light at the top. The harbour wall reflection is the colours of the wall plus the sea colour mixed in together, making sure that I went straight down, creating that gap shape in the middle. Going darker next to the wall and then lighter as it comes away from it in tonal value. Using quite sweepy brush strokes as well and not too fiddly. The slither of land on the horizon, I used the same as the cloud cover but added a little blue in there and making sure it was slightly darker tonal value. I then went back into the clouds to make them a little bit stronger and a bit brushier, making sure they were still lighter though in tonal value than the masts of the boats, working round the mast and not over them. Wiping out a little paint with some turps and a rag allowed me to get a really clean colour for the buoy. I mixed cadmium yellow and permanent rose and not too much white because I wanted it really intense to make it pop. And then used a little blue to put the shadow in below the buoy. And then for the one in shadow on the left side there, I mixed more blue on it to make sure it really sat in the shadows. Now adding some details to the boats, making sure they've got the highlights on. That sail wrapped up has got mainly in shadow, but it's got a strip of light just where the light is catching it behind. Making sure it's also quite straight, not too bendy as it goes up to near the top of the mast.
So So I've all finished. It's probably took about an hour and a half to do. As you can see, the tide has dropped loads, so the angle of the boats are really different, but I was glad to get that in fairly soon. I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out, quite impressionist. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Do subscribe and like this video. Thanks, bye.